Shalom friends, welcome to this shiur in Mesillat Yesharim, the path of the just, written by the Ramchal, Rabbi Moshe Chaim Luzzatto, 18th century mystic. And we are currently on chapter 4. I'm Eliyahu Shir from Chesed Ve'emet, my site www.lovingkindness.co. And we're on chapter 4, dealing with the attribute, the trait of zehirut, watchfulness. We're trying to learn what to be careful of so that we don't fall over the stumbling blocks in life that will prevent us from reaching our goal in life. Now, the Ramchal told us that there are different types of people. One type of person, for example, is a perfectionist. To the perfectionist, we say, if you're a perfectionist in this world and you strive for only the best, you should realize that when a person leaves this world, he is going to be allocated a certain place in the next world. And there too, just as he wanted the best here, he's going to want the best there. And therefore, he should use that as an encouraging thing to him, that it should prevent him from going along the wrong path here and bring him to the right path. He's a perfectionist. He needs to be perfect also in spiritual matters. The second type of person is slightly less. He is a person who is not necessarily after being the very best, but he certainly doesn't like it when he sees that there are others who can attain higher levels than he does. When he begins to see, for example, in the physical world, that the harder you work, not a very good example to use, practically speaking, but the more industrious you are, or the more that you're able to convince people about certain products that you work with, the wealthier you can become. The more that you put into the effort, the wealthier you can become. Of course, if you sleep all day, it's not likely that you'll become the wealthiest man in the world. It could be that you win a few lotteries along the way. Certainly, by hashgacha pratis, such a thing could happen. But generally speaking, you're not going to become the wealthiest person. You need to work on some sort of system that gets the entire world interested, and that will bring tremendous wealth. Now, when a person gets to the next world, what he's going to see is that others have attained great goals greater than he achieved. Just as it is that in this world he feels that when he sees them achieving greatness here, and he also wants to achieve it, he should realize he's going to see the same thing in the next world. Therefore, don't waste any time. Already in this world, do everything you can, says the Ramchal, to reach that level whereby you wouldn't have to look at somebody else and say, look what he achieved. Because we've achieved more, we feel satisfied by achieving more. We gain more honor. We gain more success in what it is that we have achieved. In Cain, and he says here at the end, if so, how could a man hide his eye from his deeds or slacken his striving in attaining this? For afterwards, meaning in the next world, certainly he will suffer at that time. He can no longer rectify what he made crooked. V'hine, we continue. Yesh mehapetaim. There are some very simple people, perhaps even foolish people. Hamavakshim rak lahakel me'alehim. There's certain people in the world, not perfectionists, by any means, not perfectionists. Also, they don't even care about what other people are achieving. When they see somebody else who's more successful, what do they say? Shomru. They say, why must we toil so much in all this chassidut, this piety, and the separation? What do I need to do all this for? Now, lazy people in the world, they don't care that other people do better than they, because they say to themselves, what do I need to put all this work into things for? You know what I'll do? I'll put in 1 hour of work a day. I'll do simple little things. They'll pay me $10, $20. Well, I'll do the best that I can. I don't feel like doing more. Why must I do more? This fellow says, I'll probably survive. Hello, Dailanu. Surely it's sufficient for us. You know what the main thing is? I should earn a living. You know what the main thing is spiritually? I shouldn't be amongst the wicked, who are judged in the world above, in the world of hell, in the world of Gehenna. What I will do in life is I'll be a generally speaking good person, and I won't be a rasha, like the person who is earning a living. He says, what for me? Do you think I really need to pressure myself into working 15 hours a day and really putting in effort to do all sorts of different things? You know what I'll do? I'll suffice on a 2-hour a 2-hour a week, 2-hour a day job. They'll pay me a minimum amount, and I'll be able to pay my basic rental fee for a 1-room apartment in some slum somewhere. And that's all right for me, because for me, I feel it's sufficient. This is how the person who is spiritually unattuned, in the same way that that person is physically unattuned to that physical world, this person is spiritually unattuned to the spiritual world. And he says to himself, as long as I'm not evil, it is sufficient for me. I do not have to engage myself in any extra piety of any kind. Why must I improve myself, he says. We're not going to pressurize ourselves. I should reach the highest level of Gan Eden. I don't need that. Perhaps you've come across such individuals. They say like this: those frummies, those rabbis over there, they can fast. For them, it's a mitzvah to fast. It's Tisha B'Av. Oh, the temple was destroyed. They should fast. But I'm not one of those frummies. I'm not one of those particular people who believes in being so frum, so holier than thou. For me, it's sufficient to fast Yom Kippur. That's it. It's not because I can't fast. It's because I don't feel I need to fast. Fasting on the fast of Esther, coming up to Purim soon. Or what do I need to fast for? Leave that for the frum people. They are the people who really work hard on themselves. They want to get to Gan Eden. For me, I'll be sufficiently happy if I just die and I rest in peace. Just leave me alone. I'm not going to get a high level in Gan Eden, and it doesn't interest me. These people say, if there won't be a great portion for us when we die, no problem. At least we'll have a small portion. This is like a fellow who goes to imagine in the physical world. A fellow goes to one of these big entertainment events, and there's a famous singer, and the singer is on the front stage and dancing around and whatnot. When you buy tickets, you have to pay more money for the ticket in front than the ticket at the back. Because when you've got the ticket in the front and you're standing right by the stage, you can see the dancers, you can see the musicians, fantastic. When you're at the back, of course, you see heads bobbing up and down all the time. You try to get a glimpse, and we can only thank our lucky stars, so to speak, that there's a big monitor that's there so that we can see the entertainer entertaining us from a great distance. But if you were to ask a person, which would you rather have? Would you prefer the front row ticket right by the stage where things are happening? Or would you prefer the ticket at the back where you can see things at a distance? Nobody in their right minds would say, you know what? I'd prefer the ticket that will give me at the very back. The reason that the person is usually at the very back is one of two reasons. One, he bought his tickets too late, and so he didn't get front row tickets. Or two, he didn't have the money to get the front row ticket. It's like another type of person. A person who says to himself, when I travel, let's assume he has the money to do so. And he says to himself, for me, I will travel on the most uncomfortable seat on the plane. Now, this is not normal thinking if a person really had the ability to buy a more comfortable seat. It's not normal thinking. If a person really did have the freedom of choice, would he really choose that? Generally speaking, I'm not talking about humble people for a second. The better example, of course, is on the stage than the plane, which we can talk about later. But the analogy still has some sort of a connection. So basically, when people are speaking about their spiritual future, you get the type of person who says, do you really think that I need to be in the very front row? Do I need to see what's going on? I'll be quite happy in the very back row where I see heads bobbing up and down. And I believe that there's a show on and people are enjoying the show, just that I can't see it from where I am. Most people would say if they could afford it, they would for sure buy the front row tickets. Why should it be any different when it comes to spiritual matters? Why does a person speak in this way? It can only be because of laziness. That the person says to himself, me, I need the front row ticket. I'll be satisfied if they just let me into the Garden of Eden. You won't be satisfied, because ultimately, like everybody who wants the front seats, once you get into the stadium, once you get into the world and you see what it's about, you say to yourself, That's not what I wanted. I wanted the very best. But the lazy person, says the Ramchal, thinks this way. Anu dai lanu bazeh. It is sufficient for us. We don't need to work any harder to get this higher level. I'll be satisfied with the very, very least. Amnam, however, says the Ramchal, let's ask them a question. Is it possible that they take it so lightly to endure this world that is a world that simply passes by? In this world, how do people treat their lives in this world? Do they treat their lives in this world with that same attitude? Or I'll be happy if I just have that jalopy with the engine going at a rate you can hear it from 3 kilometers away. I'll be happy if it's got a gearbox that if I could just move it from one gear to the next, even if it grinds and makes terrible noises, I'll be happy with that. Now we compare it to somebody's friend. Now what about when he sees that his friend is so glorified, so honored, he's reached a high station, much higher. Hey, that friend of mine, I didn't even think highly of him. I used to speak Lashon Hara about him my whole life. When I was growing up, my parents always told me stories. They used to say to me, this fellow, he's such a plain-looking fellow. He'll never accomplish anything in his life. We have everything going for ourselves. But this fellow, he has nothing. Look what he looks like. Look what he's going to achieve with nothing. And suddenly, years later, we bump into him. And he's the head of the bank. And he's the fellow who produced the latest invention. And so on and so forth. When we look at him, we say, well, what did we achieve next to what he's achieved? There's a tremendous feeling of sadness, disillusionment, embarrassment. Or Moishel Aleihim, and these people are even ruling over them. V'kol shekain, all the more so. Echad me'avdeihim, one of their servants. Imagine that scenario. Person's working. A person has a home, and they hire the servant to clean the home, to do the dishes. Sometimes a dish breaks. They go up to the servant and they say to the servant, well, what are you? Look at you, look what you've done to us. You broke this dish. What a horrible thing you've done. And then as the servant is going through the house, cleaning up the house, you missed a spot. What type of a person are you? Anyway, meanwhile, back at the ranch, this person spends every night studying to become a doctor. And 6-7 years later, after having worked with this person and cleaning their house and dusting the cobwebs and being shouted at, so on, becomes a doctor. Next thing you know, the person says, I'm not working here any longer. I have work to do. I have to go somewhere else. Goodbye. 2 years later, this person is in need of some treatment. And guess what? The person who can do the treatment happens to be the servant. And suddenly the person finds himself by the servant and he's filled with tremendous embarrassment. One moment he was insulting them, telling them he's a nothing. He was a nothing. But look what he became. Can you imagine the embarrassment that a person feels under those circumstances? Or min ha'iniyim hanivzim. Or if we find a person is so poor and despicable, ushfalim, humbled, be'einehim, in their eyes, v'lo yitztaru. And won't it be distressing to them, meaning when they meet with success? And won't their blood boil inside them when they see that this person meets with success? And what about when it comes to the next world? And when we realize when we get to the next world that that person has achieved his goal in life, he did what he had to do, and he is stationed in a beautiful place. And when we arrive there thinking that we've got it all and that all we needed was the basics, Lo vadai, not for a second does a person begin to start thinking, I don't mind. All of a sudden, the person says, I wish I had. How many people do we know in life that we see them when they grow up, they finish school, they're not prepared to do anything afterwards, no work, nothing. They take something simple, they become a simple job, they clean up somewhere for the rest of their lives. And somebody else goes to university and they're sitting and they're studying. I'm just giving that as an example. It doesn't have to necessarily be so. The fellow who is cleaning up may become more wealthy. I'm just saying in a general term. And let's say, for example, this person, he becomes successful, he becomes the manager of the bank, and he is respected by everybody. And many years later, the two meet up, and the one starts to think to himself, if only I had to put in the effort that you did when you were studying. It wasn't that I didn't do it because I couldn't. It's because I didn't want to do it. I felt I could rest on my laurels. I could just say everything is okay where I am, and I don't need to go further. That embarrassing feeling all of a sudden, meeting that person? That is the feeling that the soul experiences in the next world if we take that attitude in this world. While I'm here, well, I don't need to be super from. Let the frommies be from. I can just be on an ordinary level. I just want a place in Gan Eden. Whatever it is, I'll be happy, really. But in this world, we see that the nature of the soul is not to be happy. It strives for growth and level upon level. So too, when a person dies and he leaves this world, he's going to experience that same shame, the same embarrassment. Our eyes sees, our eyes see. Call amal ha'adam, all the effort that a person puts in. Lihinasei al kol mishiochal, is that he puts in effort to become greater than whatever he can over anybody else. The nature of people is always to seek out to be at the highest possible place amongst other people. It's a natural attribute that a person is jealous of his friends. And if he sees his friend is getting higher than he is, and he remains on this low, humbled level, after all the insult that he gave this fellow so many years ago, and he told him he was a nothing, and the family used to speak about him, what's a nothing, the family come from nothing, etc., etc., and all of a sudden we realize he's become a something. Vadai, shemashi yisbol, certainly that he will endure, is going to be what he has to endure. He will not be able to stop it. And his heart is going to rot within him when he sees just what it is that he was supposed to achieve, when he sees others have achieved it. And he was prepared to just say, let others do it. I'm not one of the frummies. I don't have to really go along that particular path. I'm okay where I am. I'm good and acceptable, and I'm happy with what they'll give me. As long as I get into Gan Eden, that's just fantastic. We'll stop over here because he's going to then speak about one more level as he takes it to another stage, and we can see exactly how we have to fit in with one of these levels. And ultimately, when we see where we fit in, we need to use that as a leverage, as a springboard to take us to a higher level, so that we realize how important it is to work on ourselves, to be studying Torah, to be fulfilling mitzvahs, to be praying, to be taking care of other people, to being aware and sensitive of other people who live around us, and all the different things that are involved. That is what's going to make us into greater people, and that is what is going to bring us to a higher level, so that when we leave this world, we'll be attaching ourselves to God on a much higher level. We'll be connecting with God. That is the desire of the soul. I hope you will join me for future shiurim, and we continue on this journey together, learning how to improve ourselves and getting to connect with Hashem, connecting with ourselves, and growing and enjoying the path of growth. Now, thanks very much for joining me. I'm Eliyahu Sher from Chesed Ve'emet, my site www.lovingkindness.co. Please feel free to be in touch with me. If you've enjoyed this video, please click on the like button. I'd really appreciate it. Feel free to make any comments, or as I say, just be in touch with me about anything, life, Torah, growth, prayer, whatever it is that we've been discussing in these shiurim. I'd be delighted to speak more on personal level with you about any of these subjects. Of course, if you'd like to learn some Torah, just send me an email. Let's discuss things in person and grow together and work through the mistakes and the challenges that we go through together. Thanks for joining me. I look forward to another shiur in the near future, and I wish you everything of the best. Shalom, shalom. Bye-bye.